Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to today's segment of Alex Germano. I'm a TA within the Modern Management of the Older Adults Division in both the online and live settings, and that's with lead faculty Dustin Jones and Christina Previtt. Modern Management of the Older Adult Essential Foundations online starts January 5th. So if you want to join us, January 5th is the cutoff date. We are a little over 50 signups in. So if you're thinking about joining us, now is the time to jump on it, and we cannot wait to see you all in the new year. Now, January is also a big month for the live division, and you can find us in Fenton, Michigan on January 8th, Hendersonville, Tennessee on January 15th, and Paoli, Pennsylvania on January 22nd. Lots of opportunities to catch us in January. Now on to today's topic. We're going to be talking about seated balance assessments that actually serve our population of folks who are unable to stand for other outcome measures. In my current setting, I need to be prepared to see the highest level older adult, right? And somebody who's out golfing, walking, driving, doing all the things, and potentially someone who's in hospice on the same day. So I've had to be very cognizant of what outcome measures are available to me. And I think my most recent rehab mission is to serve the seated population better and make sure that my assessments and my treatments are just as skilled, just as strong for those who sit versus those who can stand. I started to talk a little bit about this in my last podcast in October, when I spoke about doing balance better and actually doing reactive and dual tasking with my patients who primarily sit versus stand, because I typically leave those out of the plan of care, but they're still really important to do with folks who are sitting. Then Christina followed up with a really excellent podcast about seated power exercises to better serve the population. And now I want to chat about assessments, because I realized I was basically only grabbing grip strength with these patients. I was having them sit, just grab a grip strength. I always have to do a patient-specific functional scale, so it's good that I had two outcome measures. But if we know anything, functional outcome measures are so much more powerful when they're used together and not just in isolation. So using grip strength is great. I get an understanding of their, maybe potential full body strength, but it's really not enough to tell me about the patient's seated capabilities, right? So if you've taken our Essential Foundations course, you will have heard us mention the Mini Best test as a very comprehensive balance assessment. It has anticipatory, reactive balance sections. It has sensory orientation section, as well as a dynamic gait section. Very complete, great measurement to assess someone's balance where it breaks down. I just haven't been super impressed with many of the seated outcomes until I started playing around with the function in sitting test, or FIST, as it is the acronym for it. So that's where the episode of the title came from. FIST is to mini best as sitting is to standing. Let's talk through some of the items on the test. You can direct yourself to the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab website to find the link to the measurement. This test appears to have great intra and interrelator reliability, as well as test-retest reliability. Good things we want to see in a measure. Research has been performed in populations such as stroke, Parkinson's disease, and it's not listed on the Shirley Ryan website yet. They probably just haven't done an update, but there's been some recent studies within the seated spinal cord injury population as well. So those are some of the folks that we're looking at when we use this measure. And further studies are absolutely needed, and that's what the research is telling us, that we need to do more studies to kind of strengthen the evidence for the test. But so far, things are looking very good in terms of its validity in identifying a seated balance dysfunction, okay? Now let's just do a quick overview of the test. Again, if you're a listener, this will go well. If you're more of a visual person, make sure you pull up that score sheet. It's wonderful. It's a 14-item test with an ordinal scale. So you're scoring each item 0 to 4. If you score 4 points, that means that the person can do the task independently and successfully. If it's 3 points, they perform it independently, but might need some visual, tactile cueing, or they need more time. Interesting for the Parkinson's population, right? And then 2 points if they require upper body support, or they put their hands physically on the bed, or they're unable to complete a task without upper extremity support. 1, if they need some type of physical assistance to complete the task, like just any type of physical assistance that you need to provide. And then 0, if they're unable to complete the task at all successfully, or you need to give them complete physical assistance. So the patient gets a trial of each item, and the starting position is patient at edge of bed with half of the upper leg supported, hips and knees at 90 degrees, and feet should be flat. So whatever you can do to get the feet flat, put a book, Airex, whatever. Hands are placed in the lap unless needed for support. So you want to tell your patients to keep their hands in their lap until they absolutely need to put them on the bed. The total score adds up to 56. The minimal clinically important difference I saw was around 6.5 points. Again, that's only validated in like one population, but good to know. Maybe around 6-ish points would be a meaningful change. So let's talk about how some of these items are related to the mini best, because I told you they're kind of similar. First, there are 3 reactive balance tests in this measure, and they are to be performed at random during the test. There's going to be an anterior nudge, posterior nudge, or lateral nudge. I love that they're looking at reactivity in this population. It's so important, especially if a transfer is starting to go wrong. So this totally checks the box for me. Similar to the mini best, right? Mini best has some type of forward, posterior, and lateral compensatory stepping exercises. And so the fist is also showing some of that reactive component. Then we have sensory orientation. There is 30 seconds of sitting statically, 30 seconds of head shake no, heck yes for the vestibular system, and 30 seconds of eyes closed. This definitely starts to give me more information about what my patient's ability is to orient in space. Such a nice, definitely giving us more information. I really appreciated that there was head shake, because I think that's just so valuable into getting a glimpse into what our patient's state of their semicircular canals or vestibular function is. In comparison to the mini best gets people eyes closed a little bit more on uneven surfaces. I kind of wish there was an unsteady surface incorporated here into the fist, but I cannot decide what goes into this measurement. But I think they at least did a great job capturing some type of sensory orientation, especially at least closing eyes. That was important. Closing eyes and shaking head. Okay, moving on. So there seems to be quite a few anticipatory measures in this test. There's picking up objects behind themselves, picking up objects on the floor, forward and lateral reaches. So a lot of anticipatory, which is good because that's a lot of the balance that we use and that we need. So I appreciate that the test isn't all anticipatory. That's where something like the Berg kind of gets funky because it's a lot of anticipatory balance. But this incorporates other types of balance as well. So appreciate a bit of anticipatory. We need to monitor it. We need to see it. And anticipatory in all directions. So there's forward, lateral, and then posterior reaching, which I also think is quite important, as well as getting the head down and reaching for something for the floor. So very good there. And then lastly, there are posterior, anterior, and lateral scooting tasks, which I really like as a way to start to assess transfer balance. I feel like this kind of relates to the dynamic piece, the dynamic gait piece of the mini best. If you've done the mini best before, there's this dynamic gait component where you are assessing walking, pivoting, head turns, fast and slow walking, and some dual tasking. But it's hard to do a dynamic movement piece within the seated population because we can't assume that all seated patients are wheelchair users. So I get why they didn't maybe do more of a moving assessment. But I really like scooting because it's really vital to the population. If you're spending a lot of time in bed, edge of bed, having to do transfers, scooting is going to be a vital skill, especially if you're doing slide board transfers or pivot transfers. So I enjoyed seeing all the directions represented here. Dustin likes my t-shirt today. If you're listening, I have a dachshund in a Christmas sweater and antlers because I am a dachshund owner. I had to show up. I had to do something similar to Huey yesterday, who was in full Christmas spirit. All right, so the one big thing I think the fist is missing is that dual tasking component. I would love to crowdsource the problem because I don't entirely have the answer. And I've picked up personally, clinically, on a lot of issues within the seated population on the ability to dual task, like while performing a slide board transfer or performing wheelchair mobility in general. I've started running my own dual task tugs, so to speak, giving someone like a set distance to wheel to and then turn around, timing a regular one, and then timing one where they're performing a cognitive dual task layered on top. I don't have normative values to work with per se, but similar to the mini best, I will just look for that 10% change between regular and dual tasking ability, and then that would kind of clue me in on some potential issues with dual task. Same thing can work for transfers. You can time a transfer, like a slide board transfer, for example, having them do a regular slide board transfer, then having them do a dual task slide board transfer. And again, you can pick up on a change there with like a 10% increase in time may indicate some issues with dual tasking. But again, that's me making that outcome measure up for us. So I think it's good to just clue us in if we don't exactly have the resources yet to be able to assess dual task better in the seated population. That's just how I've been managing it, because I think dual tasking is just so important to look at and train, being a vital skill for kind of functional mobility and just being an independent human being. So if you know of a better seated dual task outcome, I need them to be sent my way because I'm looking. And a lot of the research is centered around pediatrics and use of wheelchairs, which is fine, but I think we're missing a bit of the population there. Okay, so in summary, since I went off on a dual task tangent, let's bring us back to the fist. I'm super excited about the function in sitting test and the potential for the test and use in the older adult population. I've had much better assessments for my patients' seated balance in areas of sensory orientation, anticipatory postural control, reactive postural control, and even some look into their transfer abilities with the use of this test. I really do think the FIST is the mini best for the seated population right now. And so if you start using it or you've been using it, let me know how you've liked it or how you're going to like it. And we can chat. And if you find that dual task outcome measure for me, let me know. And we can chat more in the comments. Please give us a shout out if you have any questions regarding these tests. Have a great Wednesday, y'all. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.